I'm Daniel Bohans. I've been snowboarding for the past 17 years and I've been competing for 6 of those years. I got into snowboarding because of my dad. We used to go every year down to Mount Ruapehu, and when I was about 2 I tried skiing, and then the next year we went down again, and I really thought that snowboarding was way cooler and I wanted to be a bit different from my family, so I decided to do snowboarding. And I remember it took us 3 hours to find a board my size. Snowboarding became competitive when I was about 12 or 13. I can't remember exactly what age I was, but around then. And I had my first competition at Snow Planet, and I did a few competitions at Snow Planet before I started getting a bit more serious. Snowboarding started to become serious. I think the first year I moved down to Wanaka, so about 6 years ago was my first time going down to Wanaka for half the season, and that's, I guess, when I started to realise that it's going to pick up and this is going to be my life for the next however many years. So the first big competition I had was the first time I moved down to Wanaka for half the season. That was by myself. I had junior nationals. That was my first ever one, and I remember I was so much of a grommet then. I think my slopestyle run on the jumps was like 2 grabs, not even spins. I somehow managed to snag a second for my first ever nationals, so couldn't complain. I mean, mum and dad were very stoked, and I guess they gave me an edge, or like a push to continue. My biggest highlight of my career, if I had to pick one, would definitely be having my grandparents and my whole family watching me at Junior Worlds at Czech Republic. That was 2017. I checked the date there, but 2017, I remember not landing anything in training, not landing anything for 3 days, completely fell on my ass on the first run, and then landing somehow as a miracle to land my whole run the first time in my last run of the competition. And I just remember that was the biggest sigh of relief almost, and just like such a great moment. I just remember calling my dad, just being stoked, and they were like so stoked for me. Like, yeah, that was definitely one of the highlights. So my ultimate goal that I always wrote down to myself was looking over at my parents from the podium of an Olympic stage. So that was always my vision. I tried the hardest to get there, and to get there I had to go to countries overseas without my parents and just train every day. We went Switzerland, America, Canada, Finland, Italy, Austria, you name it. It's got a mountain. We've been there pretty much, and that was just all for training, all to get better so I could achieve that vision I had. Ultimately as well, make the New Zealand team, which would get me the ticket to go to the Olympics really. So some of the negatives of travelling and constantly training all the time was, I think the most obvious one was falling behind on schoolwork, especially because I didn't have a parent there to sort of push me. So, and all I really wanted to do was snowboard, and if I wasn't snowboarding I was doing something to help my snowboarding, so I never really sat down and did the school. With the overtraining comes a lot of injuries, and for 2 years in a row, for 2016, 2017, I had to end my Wanaka season early just because of injuries, and that pretty much came from fatigue and overtraining and just never having enough rest and never taking a break. In 2016 I shattered my ankle, and so I was in a moon boot for 3 months over summer, and then in 2017 I pretty much split a ligament in my elbow. So over the past 3 years, especially when training and competition ramped up, I started putting my body on the line almost every day, trying to learn something new, and also As of last year, I put school pretty much on a hold. I remember at Junior Worlds last year, I don't think I did school for a month because I was either just way too shattered from the day's training or I was constantly doing something. And that was all to do with pursuing my career and ultimately trying to make that karting team.
For a long time I felt without style or grace, wearing shoes with no socks in cold weather. I knew my heart was in the right place. I knew I'd be able to do these things. And as you watch him digging his own grave.
Karting in New Zealand snow sports is a ticket pretty much to the Olympics, is a ticket to fame and fortune almost, as some people call it. So with karting you get everything. You get free physio, you get free nutritionists, you get free mental health. Not mental health, like mentalists. You get travel overseas, they plan everything for you. You get the top coaches in the world. You're pretty much under New Zealand's wing at that point if you're in the karting team. So the karting selection was my ticket to my vision and my dream, and ultimately being able to see my parents from the Olympic podium. So my karting experience was definitely interesting to say the least. The start of last year, me and 5 of my mates, or my closest mates, were told by Snow Sports that at the end of that year there was going to be a karting selection and that competition results would matter. So we went into training thinking we need to get our competition runs good, stop progressing as it is right now, just focus on making sure our runs are perfect for competitions, etc. Wanaka came around, and so Mitchell lived with us down in Wanaka with me and my dad, and he came a week later, and on the first day he got to Wanaka, the snow sports coaches were picking him up from our house, like right in front of me, like blatantly. They couldn't care less really, and they'd take him up the hill. So I'd go up the hill that same day as well, but I'd have to drive myself. I never got a ride from them. And then on the mountain I'd be with my coach, and the rest of my mates would be with our coach, and you'd just see Mitchell with the snow sports coaches throughout the day, and that happened for the whole season. So the difference between a snow sports coach and my coach is just one knows exactly what needs to be done, and the other one sort of is playing by ear through snow sports. So it's a bit of much more advantage knowing what you have to train your kid for and what the criteria is, rather than sort of having a guess. Towards the end of the season, after Mitch had been coached up this whole time, well, before it sounds like it was his fault, he always felt shit about this. Like, he always came home after being dropped home and he just always felt guilty because he didn't have a say in what was happening really. And he knew what it pretty much meant. I think we all knew what it meant, that he was going to get the karting. And at the end of the season, he got the karting. So they broke the news to all of us through email. So even though the snow sports headquarters and like gym was literally a minute drive from my house, like me and Mitchell used to walk there for gym, they could have easily called everyone in and at least told everyone how it felt, what was going on, but it was literally just either unfortunately your son hasn't made it or that's it. On the mountain, it was weird because I was just training for nothing really at this point, and I was just wanting to get a deep understanding of what actually went wrong, what happened with everything, because I thought I was doing well. They even said I had more drive than most of the other kids, so it was a bit of a shock. I just remember wanting to get back, just wanted to prove Snow Sports wrong one last time, so I ended up beating Mitchell at nationals. So, but that did nothing to the situation really. But yeah, I just sort of started freaking out. Started realizing I had to think about my life a bit more. Not having a plan B, because I never thought that would happen like that. If I knew that was going to be like that and he was pre-selected, it would have, I don't know, I think I would have stopped before I moved down to Wanaka. But at the same time, it is what it is. It affected everyone the same almost. We didn't have an option to go back. I was lucky enough to have the option to go to the Croatian team, but that would have flipped my whole life around, and considering this was my last year of school, I should probably do that instead. So yeah, that was my karting experience really. If I could talk to my younger self, I'd definitely, I don't know, I'd tell him to think about his future, but I mean, not saying that I did think about it, but it was just sort of happened so quickly. Like, I obviously thought about what's gonna happen after snowboarding, because I always thought I would make it, and then I was always thinking, what am I gonna do after snowboarding finishes? So I always had a plan B. I should have a plan B for this situation. I didn't expect this to happen. So I guess it was hard to judge. It's hard to tell myself what I could say or what I could give advice. I tried the best I could really, gave it my all. I remember crying when I wrote this. I was with my best mate Max, and he was living with me at the time, and I brought him in. And this was when I was making the decision whether to go with the Croatian snowboard team or completely stop competitively. And I brought him into my room, told him, watch this, wrote this on my board, and we hugged it out, had a little bromance. But yeah, no, it was good. But it made it official, really.